everyone. Welcome. We'll just wait a couple of minutes here as some people trickle in. This is my second favorite part of the session. My first is obviously the session, but watching everybody join is the best part, seeing who we have tonight and all the questions that you folks will ask us this evening. So welcome. Awesome. You've got a lot of people joining us this evening, Lawrence. It's probably snowing outside or something.
Yeah. It's always fun to see the big rush in at the very beginning.
Awesome. Okay, so I guess we'll get started as some people may join us throughout the presentation, but welcome everyone. You have found your way to our Parents and Supporters live stream, and we're so excited to welcome you to this session today. My name is Jillian, and I'm an enrollment advisor here at Trent, and I'm going to be moderating the session. And with me today, I do have an all-star panelist that will talk to you about how you can be a great support for your child as they head to university and that transition from high school to university and what supports they may have while they're here at Trent. And we're excited to welcome you and your student to all of the reasons why Trent has been ranked the #1 undergraduate university in Ontario for 12 consecutive years. Tonight's panelist is Lawrence Lamb, who is the Associate Vice President of Students at Trent. And Lawrence has a presentation for us, and then we are opening the session for Q&A at the end. So at the bottom right-hand side of your screen, there should be a Q&A button, and we will answer those questions after the presentation. But with that, I'm going to pass the virtual microphone to Lawrence, and we'll hear from you folks in the Q&A.
Awesome. Thanks, Jillian. As Jillian mentioned, my name is Lawrence Lamb. I'm the Associate Vice President of Students here at Trent, and I want to say thank you so much for spending your evening with me tonight. It's evening here in Peterborough, so I will say good evening. And it is rather snowy, and so I hope folks are, wherever you are in the world, staying safe and warm tonight. But we're going to spend the next 45 minutes or an hour together to talk about how to prepare yourselves to best support your students as they make the transition into post-secondary education. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We're going to get into things. Share. All right. So welcome to our Trent Advantage live stream. Like I said, this is our Parents and Supporters session. A little bit about the Trent experience. Like Jillian mentioned, we are Ontario's #1 undergraduate university, and we're very proud to also be #1 in scholarships and bursaries too. We are a smaller institution, and we really value the community and the interdisciplinary approach that we have here on our campus. So a little bit about what this evening is going to look like. We're going to do a little bit of an introduction, and I'm going to be posing a few things for you to consider as we work through the presentation today. Just recognizing that students, families, yourselves as supporters, all come from different backgrounds and experiences. We don't have one exact cookie cutter way that you're going to support your students. We want to acknowledge and respect the different types of relationships, the different types of supports, and the different types of needs that students and families and supporters have. So we'll talk about student and family transitions, talk about strengths and development, challenges, resources, referrals, all the resources and supports that we have at the university, how to talk to your student, recognizing that sometimes it's very challenging to talk to a teenager, what to do when things go wrong, and how to best support them from potentially afar. As a content note, we will mention a little bit about difficult issues that can affect students, things like mental illness, sexual violence, suicidality, but our focus this evening is going to be about prevention and supports around these challenging topics and what we do at Trent to prevent and support students with these challenges. So how the webinar will work in the chat, if you click on the Q&A, we'll have some monitored help to be able to sort through the questions, and I'll be able to answer some of these questions at the end. We'll spend about half to maybe 2/3 of our time going through this presentation, and we'll make sure to get some time at the end to tailor some of these answers to you. So the second point of our introduction, what people like me do and why we love it. So I've been working in post-secondary for just about 15 years at different institutions, and I've had the opportunity to work at 4 different schools. And I will say Trent is extraordinarily unique, and I do feel very privileged to be here. Like I mentioned, we are a smaller school where we are able to make great connections with the people and students that we support. Why I love the work that I do, it's awesome to be able to help students transition from high school to post-secondary and then into careers that they've been dreaming about for all their lives, or whether they're coming to university to help sort out where the direction they want to go for the rest of their life. And so it's really rewarding to be able to work with students and help them achieve their goals. Being able to learn from one another, and that's something that we value here too, is not being able to teach and impart wisdom on students, but it's also being able to learn from their experiences and have their knowledge and what they have learned throughout their lives influence what we do here on our campus as well. So we're very much an inclusive community that values the students here too. So something to consider as we go through this presentation is, what is something you expect your student will experience in university? Like I said, we are going to acknowledge that people have different goals, different purposes of coming to universities. So what are some of the things that are unique to yourself as a supporter, your family, or your students? The second thing that I will just acknowledge is, what is one change you think that will take place? And recognizing that coming to post-secondary education for the first time is a big transition. There's a lot of independence or a lot of learned independence over your time at university on a personal, on an academic, on a social change kind of scale. So what are some of the changes that you think will happen for your student? And as you start to think about that, I'll hope to be able to give you some of the resources that we have on campus on how we can address the change and the needs that your student will face. And then lastly, we're going to talk a little bit about expectation, dreams, and of course, change. So some common family anxieties. What are some things that you're anxious about for your student or for yourself? So some of the common things that we hear and what we see from our family members and supporters are that a student will lose touch, or a student won't like their university courses, that the student might not make friends, that they'll make too many friends perhaps. That a student might be disappointed, that bad things will happen, or that a student will change beyond all recognition. And certainly all of these common anxieties are valid, and there might be some on this list that might not be listed, that might be impactful for you. So that is something to keep in mind, and hopefully through this presentation and when we talk about how to communicate with your student, we're able to navigate some of these anxieties together. And we, of course, will be here to help facilitate those conversations with you as well. But to think about what the core of these questions and what these anxieties are is thinking about the needs for yourself and what the student, and that's going to be most important here as we navigate through. So next I wanted to just acknowledge, like I mentioned, transition is a big part of coming to university. And so thinking about the major changes in your life, what were some of the challenges that you faced? What gave you some satisfaction, or what were some of the emotions that you experienced? these are likely going to be some similar challenges, some satisfactions and experiences or emotions that you've experienced that your student is going to experience as well. What are some ways that your student may need to manage their transition? And so, in asking you to reflect on your experiences, we're hoping to draw some parallels to what helped you, what has helped your student in the past manage some of these transitions. And so, one kind of coping or structure that we want to share with folks is a little bit of transition theory. And so, this transition theory is by an academic named Nancy Schlossberg, and she overviews transition and the success of transition with the four main S's. And so transition and the ability to manage through change can be impacted by self. And so the personal demographic of the person. So what are the psychological resources that they have to regulate their own emotion? The second S that we use to help manage transition is the support, and thinking about what kind of relationships within their family, their friends, the institution and communities that they have to help through this change. The third S that we have is strategies. So what strategies does the student have to modify the situation, to control meaning, and to manage stress? And the last one is situation. So what is the actual change that's happening? What is the trigger, the timing? Is it prolonged? Is it acute? The control, the duration, the experience, any concurrent stresses, and assessment. So these four S's that we know that are helpful in managing change may help you have conversations with your student to identify key barriers in their successful transition. For example, in conversation, you might recognize that supports are something that lacks. So relationships at the institution or within the community, if they're not feeling engaged in clubs or groups, that might be something or an area that will contribute to success. Perhaps strategies in order to control meaning and manage stress might be another area in which you want more support for a student. So recognizing that these four S's and these four categories will change how a student is able to get through transition is going to be really important, so that we and you are able to help them be successful through this change. So for transitions to first year, some things to consider. What is something you expect your student will need to learn to be successful? And so again, this is part of our strategies and part of our supports. So will it need to be academic? Will it need to be financial, social, physical, or mental health? Will they need to manage and learn to think about risk and how risk plays a part in social, financial, physical scenarios? We also want to help students establish independence, personal autonomy, and responsibility, and recognizing that they may be on their own for the first time and need to take a little bit of independence and initiative to be successful. So these are some of the transitions that we might expect to see. So when we think about students who are successful in their transition to university, there are a few different characteristics in which we see students who are successful that they display. The first one is motivation, and their motivation to reach the goals that they've set for themselves within their first year and beyond their time at university. The second success factor is self-confidence and their ability and their confidence in their own capabilities to achieve and be successful. The third is their connection with academics and with campus. And so the connections and their passion with what they're studying and their ability to feel connected to a community at Trent and within our campus. Fourth is self-reliance, so their ability to be independent, to problem solve, and to be able to take initiative and seek out assistance or support when needed. The next one is skill development and their ability to build skills. We have lots of resources that I'll mention in just a few slides on skill development. And then the last one is the ability to identify issues and seek help when needed. So another thing that I want to cover is student strengths. So looking at the areas that your student may find challenging, what are some areas of strength that they might have? So something that you might want to consider for yourself is thinking about 3 examples of strength that your student has, whether it is creativity, innovation, determination. What are some things that you know your student possesses that can be leveraged as success? These examples of success might be something that you want to draw upon when you're having conversations with your student and they're facing challenging times. How can they leverage their creativity, their innovation, and their determination to persist and succeed during challenges? One thing that I will point out, and the next few slides, and when we talk about resources, we'll kind of highlight everything on this website, is our current students website. So if you go to www.trentu.ca/current students, it breaks down all of our student supports based on social, academic, career supports. And so we'll talk a little bit about where these supports lie on campus on our website and how they can support some of the needs that we've identified in our previous slides. So the first support resource that I'm going to talk about is our academic advisors. And so there's one academic advisor in each of our colleges. And so our advisors are going to help our students with our academic pathways. They're going to advise on challenges that they might face as they navigate through their program. Academic advisors are also going to be the folks who are helping our students navigate through forms, petitions, and graduation checks. They'll help students map out their courses and help them make sure that they are meeting all of their needs for their program. Another important academic support are our academic skills instructors. Again, there's one in each of our 5 colleges and the Durham campus. And they are going to help students in individual appointments or workshops, either online or in person, to help them develop writing skills, math skills, and more of the study skill things that they might develop. So again, that's linking back to one of the success factors that we see in skill development. We also have academic supports. Our registrar's office is a great resource for students. Our faculty and teaching assistants is something that we pride ourselves on, and having low faculty to student ratios, and that students are able to build connections with their faculty and their TA to be able to ask them questions about their current research and how it applies to what they're learning. Things like office hours, drop-in appointments are certainly things that we encourage our students, and you should encourage your students to take advantage of. Academic departments, so departments like chemistry, history, French, are also great resources for our students, especially in choosing their major if they have not done so already. Another area of support that we have that's really important is our careers pathway support. So how do we make sure and assist students in taking what they've learned and what they've studied and translate it into a career? So one thing that I'll stress is that it's never too soon to start planning for skills development, academic pathways, and goals beyond Trent. And certainly through their time here, we encourage students to take part in experiential learning, co-op if their program allows, to be able to seek different opportunities and what they may be interested in and how they might pursue these opportunities beyond. So thinking about what are some of the transferable skills that they might learn in their classroom, in their jobs, to take forward. Another opportunity and experience that we have is our co-curricular record. So our co-curricular record is like a report card for all of the things that your student gets involved with outside of academics. So if they're part of a club executive, if they're engaged with a different sport or varsity team, if they're engaged in student government, this is kind of a list of all of the things that they have been part of and how they've contributed to the Trent community that they can take to a grad school application, if a job is looking for how they've been applied, if they're looking to pursue professional school beyond their undergraduate degree. One department that we have on campus, Career Space, located in the Student Center, is our department dedicated to experiential learning, co-op, and career development. So they'll offer different online and in-person resources on everything from how to write a resume, to interview, to network. And so they'll host different opportunities like a volunteer fair, employment fairs, to connect students with jobs within their field of study. And again, having clear goals and motivations helps with that academic success so that they're able to narrow down in Career Space and help them have more tailored supports and opportunities. Next type of support I'm going to mention is our financial support. And within the registrar's office, we have student financial aid, and they're the ones that manage OSAP, bursaries, scholarships, Trent work-study programs, which allows us to be able to employ students on campus. And they're also the office that will administer emergency loans. The registrar's office is also somewhere that you can go for RESP verification of enrollment at www.trentu.ca/registrar under the forms section for folks who are looking for that verification. I want to also talk about the social supports on our campus and recognizing that feeling connected and feeling part of a community is really important and crucial to a student's success. We have lots of opportunities across our campus to be involved in smaller groups or cross-campus groups. And so one of the first things that your student will be introduced to is our Summer Connect and Fall Orientation. So our Summer Connect is an online program where students will be able to start building relationships with one another online that will then translate into our Fall Orientation program, which is a week-long program prior to classes starting to introduce students to different resources on campus, to help them find their way around, and to build relationships. We also have our colleges. So within our Trent campuses, the colleges are smaller communities in which students can engage in and help feel part of a closer, tight-knit connection. If your student is living in residence, that is also a great social support. There will be dons, so upper year students who live in residence who will act as role models, mentors, and will be important to helping facilitate a safe communities on campus. We also have off-campus student activities and off-campus student housing supports on our campus through our off-campus housing office. We also have a large number of student groups and clubs that students can be a part of. We have everything from Dungeons and Dragons to equestrian. The range of interest is quite broad, and if there is a club that doesn't exist that a student is interested in, working with a student association to develop new clubs is certainly on the table for students as well. We have university and student events. A lot of our student clubs, groups, and governments will run social events, activism events, educational events, de-stress events, skill building events. There are lots of opportunities and lots of groups who are looking to contribute to building community and skills within our students. I mentioned a little bit about advocacy. We do have a Trent Central Student Association. So that is our student association responsible for all of our students at the undergraduate level, and they represent students on a provincial and national level. They're also the body that administers the health insurance plan. Within each of the college communities, there is a elected government as well, so the college cabinets to get involved with, and so they operate similar to how a provincial government would relate to a federal government, which we would equate to our Trent Central Student Association. Again, I talked about our co-curricular record. We also have a very well-established impact leadership program that accepts a small cohort of 30 students throughout a year, and they do different experiential learning activities, a retreat to Camp Kawartha, and then a volunteer placement in second term. And of course, just meeting friends and making friends and using them as their support. For our Indigenous students, we do have the First Peoples House of Learning, and they offer support and education to all students, Indigenous or not, but there are particular Indigenous student services within this department, such as cultural advising, cultural counseling, and different mentorship programs that Indigenous students can be involved in. There are different spaces for Indigenous students as well within our First Peoples House of Learning, such as our gathering space, our traditional areas, our teepees, meeting with elders and knowledge keepers, and also cultural programming. There's also a few specialized supports for Indigenous students, such as financial support, academic advising, tutoring, and mentorship, like I mentioned. Some of the physical health supports that we have on campus, some of the concerns that we might see with students are irregular eating or sleeping habits, as you can imagine. If a student has a severe allergy, stress, anxiety, prescription medication, or substance use or misuse are things that occur on campus, and we certainly have the resources to support students. The first is our health services. So we do have a clinic on campus located within our main administrative building, Blackburn Hall. And so students will be able to have an appointment with a nurse, a doctor, for all of their physical health needs that they would normally see your family doctor for. We also have our athletic centers to help balance that healthy lifestyle too. There's lots of recreational programming, group fitness classes, personal training opportunities, ability to participate in different groups on campus, and it's certainly open to all levels of physical engagement or ability. We do have a rowing tank and a rock wall and a beautiful cardio loft that overlooks the Autonomy River. We also have our food services, which will ensure that all of our students are able to eat, depending on dietary restrictions, in a way that's going to work for them. And our food services team prides themselves on being able to make sure that they're accommodating to gluten-free, dairy-free, halal, kosher, gluten intolerance, anything that you can think of. They will make sure that our students are fed 3 square meals a day. Mental health is also really important, recognizing that stress and anxiety sometimes do present themselves in challenging transitions like coming to university, and sometimes major mental health issues may present themselves. And so we have peer supports such as our residence dons. We have a robust peer support program because we recognize that students might not feel comfortable talking to a professional. They might want to seek out a peer. So we do have student leaders across campus who are trained by our campus partners. We have a few partnerships with the Canadian Mental Health Association to do some of these trainings for our student leaders to make sure that we're supporting one another. We also have a counseling center where students can access appointments with a therapist, and that's free of charge with their student fees. We also have an accessibility office within our wellness center that will help students if they have an individual education plan already established from high school and it's still within the expiry date. We can help make sure that we have appropriate accommodations for our students coming to Trent as well. I do want to talk a little bit about sexual assault and sexual violence prevention. One of the things that we have at Trent is our Consent at Trent program. And so this is a mandatory program for all of our students in orientation. And so in order to participate in orientation week, they do have to attend this program that goes over what consent means and how do we gain enthusiastic consent from people we're in a relationship with, how we are an intervener and how we directly intervene, we offer a distraction, or we call for help if we see something that we think is unconsensual or a problem. We also engage in conversations about preventing sexual assault and keeping each other safe, and being aware of building security and safety. And also stressing to our survivors that it's never their fault if they're sexually assaulted. So I mentioned wanting to ensure that our students have independence and autonomy. And so some of the things that you may want to consider as a support person or within your family are, what role do your family members play in your students' transition to university and their journey through? What are your expectations for your students and how can you help them meet these expectations? Are these expectations clear to your student? What will help you feel confident in your students' personal autonomy and recognizing that letting them go for the first time outside of your home and live on their own potentially for the first time? What is going to make you feel confident in their ability to be independent? Is it regular check-ins over the phone? Is it a FaceTime call? What works for you? What will shake your confidence and how will you cope? And so what are some of the triggers that you might get alarmed about and how will you help navigate your own feelings and emotions through that and talking to your student? And thinking about what future directions will your student take? Again, thinking back to the goals that they have and how will you help them along? So some of the things to help navigate through these questions is thinking about active listening. And so prompting them for response. So what might be a verbal or nonverbal cue, ensuring that you're asking open-ended questions versus yes or no. So did you have a good day today versus how was your day? Or tell me about your classes or tell me about this experience. A big part of active listening is also listening for and validating their feelings. And something you might do is paraphrase for understanding. And you might say something like, yeah, that is tough. Tell me more. Or, yeah, I can understand why you're frustrated. So it's important, and I know it's very instinctive to jump in and go straight to advice, but sometimes students just need to be heard. And sometimes they just need a sounding board to navigate or pinpoint what these needs are. So when there is a concern with your student between yourselves or with a student and another student, or if they feel like there's a need that's not being met, some helpful things that you might say are that sounds really difficult. What have you tried so far? And so that, by saying that, we're encouraging them to have thought about solutions that they can do on their own. You might want to ask, what would be helpful for you right now? So helping them prioritize what some of the needs are and empowering them to think about what is most important. The third question that you might ask is, have you talked to anyone about this? So encouraging them to seek out different supports and resources on campus and making them think about the strategies that they've already developed. A few structures that also might help in conversations and having difficult chats with students is phrasing something like this structure that we have here on the screen. When you do this or blank, I feel blank. So identifying an impact. It would be really helpful if then you can provide a suggestion. Another structure that you might want to consider in having difficult conversations is the I like, I wish, I wonder. So you're providing the validation at the beginning. So I like that we're able to have an honest conversation. I wish I was able to find more resources for you. I wonder if we can go online together and see what supports are available. So being able to frame things in a way that's positive and solutions focused might be helpful. On this next slide, we have a conversation checklist about some of the things that you might want to have with your student as well. And the first one is financial and talking about money. Is where is it coming from? How is it being spent? What bursaries are available, OSAP, what the student is going to be responsible for. Again, thinking about academic expectation, yours and the students, living arrangements and how they might change. If a student is living in residence for the first year, what are the plans for second, third, and fourth? Communication frequency, so how often are you going to speak to your student? You might want to have a conversation before a student starts about how will you have a conversation together when things are tense? And how will you raise a concern with one another? So when you, as a parent or supporter, may start to worry, some things that we recommend is, again, encouraging that autonomy. What can your student do to make the situation better? What resources on campus can they access? What supports can they develop or connect to? And what strategies can they employ? Seeking more information, we have lots of information on our Trent website and the different departments across campus. They're up to date and they'll be able to direct you to more information if needed. Feel free to contact us if you need in the department that your question is related to. In terms of contacting the university, one thing that I will say is that due to privacy legislation, we might not be able to engage in a conversation or disclose information about your student if we don't have their consent. So it's important that if we are going to be able, or if you're looking to have a conversation about your student needs or a particular situation, that we receive written consent from your student, and usually that will be an email from them or through a form, depending on the department, to make sure that we are able to speak to them. Usually we can't even confirm if a student is at the institution or registered in courses. As a reminder, your student will turn to you, their friends, the internet, or to us, and they have lots of access to supportive and accurate information at the right time. So making sure that they have access is going to be really important. So some of the great things about coming to university, I know we've talked about some of the supports and resources. I want to highlight some of the things that we know students take away and feel very rewarded from is the learning, both academic and through their involvement with co-curricular things and work. there's so much more that they learn outside of the classroom, in addition to what they learn inside the classroom. Growth in terms of transferable skills to being more independent, resilient, self-reliance, coming to university is certainly character building. There's a lot of excitement. There is a lot of energy. There's a lot of enthusiasm. Being surrounded by people who share common interests, academically and socially, is really exciting. There's also tons of skill development and a sense of satisfaction and fulfillment. We know a lot of our students, or the majority of our students on campus, are engaged and contribute back to the community. So there's that sense of fulfillment and being able to have an impact on your community. And that's something that we definitely see and are proud of. This brings us to the end of the presentation portion. I know I had a lot of information to cover for you. So we'll turn things over to the Q&A section. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to our office, studentaffairs@trentu.ca or trentu.ca/studentaffairs. You can also find the different contact information for the resources and supports that I highlighted at our current student website. So I'm going to stop sharing right now, and we'll turn things over to Jill. Sorry, I went a little bit over time on the presentation.
No worries at all. I think for me, as someone who's gone and sat through this before I even came to Trent, and as a staff member, I still learn new resources that we have. And it's so great to see that we do have these resources for our students, and that we do have parents and supporters here tonight that are thinking ahead and seeing how they can start supporting their student now. So that was really helpful, Lawrence. And it's nice. I'll get John to put the link in the chat. There is that website that Lawrence was talking about where it has all the supports, and you can take a look at those now as well. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A. But Lawrence, I might ask you a couple of questions that kind of went through my head during your presentation.
Of course.
When can a student start using these resources? Like, can they start using them now? Are they free? Do they have to sign up for different resources at Trent?
So it depends on the resources. Once you've accepted your offer, you've enrolled in classes, particularly for our student accessibility office. If you know that you have a particular accommodation need for your learning, we highly encourage you to reach out to SAS, Student Accessibility Services, in order to make sure that we have connected with your instructors, your faculty, to ensure you're set up for success. And so resources like academic advising, academic skills, certainly encourage you to reach out when you think is appropriate to get that kind of ball rolling.
Mm-hmm. I definitely used academic advising as much as I could in my undergrad. They saw me happy cry, they saw me sad cry, they helped me throughout changing my degrees. So these resources are really helpful. And as a past student at Trent, I can say that I did use most of them, and I tried to seek out all of them. I know I'm an introverted individual, and I was really nervous going to university. It may not look like I'm introverted because I'm talking and doing live streams all the time, but I did learn a lot about myself. So like Lawrence said, you get this sense of autonomy and you use these resources. But Lawrence, for someone who is introverted and may not be that person that is more willing to go out and seek these resources and talk to someone right away, are there like events during orientation week that are not for extroverted individuals and more catered to introverted individuals as well?
Absolutely, and thanks for asking that question, Jill. When we hear things like orientation week, welcome week, sometimes frosh week, we think about the big rah, rah, rah cheering. However, we recognize that's not for everyone, and we do offer smaller events, quieter events, where folks who are introverted might be able to connect with like-minded people in a smaller setting, whether it's kind of on a one-on-one basis or small groups. We have lots of different opportunities throughout that orientation week to be able to connect with people on different energy levels, on different scales. Even throughout the year, we have different supports that are one-on-one basis. So our peer support program is going to be a one-on-one with a upper year student if the student wishes, or you can get involved in different student groups that meet as a group of 10 to 12 or part of a large club.
That's amazing. And does a student have to sign up for orientation week, or are they just automatically signed up and then they can join during the first week of school?
Students who are new to Trent are already enrolled, and so communication will come to their student emails.
Okay. As you were talking about the resources, are they offered at both the Peterborough campus and the Durham GTA campus?
Yep, so all of the resources that I talked about today are offered at both of our campuses. And so we make sure that the experiences at Durham and at our Peterborough campus are parallel. And so you'll see lots of similarities between the services on each of the campuses.
That's great. And I know at the beginning you kind of touched upon colleges. Can you expand a little bit more about the resources that are unique to Trent and the colleges, because we have that college system? I know that colleges are typically associated with residence in your first year, but I guess also beyond living in residence and having that college system, how else can the colleges be a support to students?
Yeah, so our colleges within Trent are smaller communities within the larger Trent community. And so these communities will follow your student through their time here during their undergraduate. And if they choose to go into a graduate degree, into their grad program as well. So each of our colleges on our Peterborough campuses have a kind of a different flavor and flair depending on the interests of your student and the college itself. So students are able to choose their college based on what interests they have and what they're looking to get involved with. And so that college community is meant to provide them with a smaller network so that they do feel a little bit more at home. Within our college, within each of our colleges, like I mentioned, we have an academic advisor, an academic skills person. We also have different student leadership opportunities within each college to get involved, like our cabinets, who will do advocacy work and help plan programs and events for students. And with our colleges, there's a few different friendly competitions, like our East Bank versus West Bank hockey tournament that we host annually, where the two colleges on the East Bank of a campus face off against the two colleges on our West Bank.
That's interesting. I love that you mentioned that each college has its own personality. I put the link in the chat for those that are interested in learning a bit more about the colleges. But I was part of Zosky College. When you start looking at the photos, it looks like a cheese building. It's yellow. But being part of Zosky College cabinet and being part of my college community is what actually brought me to what I do today in my role, but also opened so many different opportunities for me starting from first year. So I always tell students, try and find something that interests you, find out what your passions are. Just because you may be moving away from home or you might be balancing school, you learn a lot about yourself, but don't lose your hobbies and your activities that you enjoy, and try and find those, like Lauren said, those like-minded people when you're on campus, because those can also be a great support for you while you're here at Trent. A couple more questions for you, Lawrence. We talked about the Impact Leadership Program, which sounded really interesting. How does a student sign up for this?
Yeah, so within the first few weeks of classes starting, so in September, there'll be an application process where students can enroll. There is a small fee and will depend on the year and different subsidies that we're able to offer to enroll in the Impact Leadership Program. And so once enrolled, students will be in this small cohort of 30 people, do a few different leadership building workshops, go to a retreat at Camp Kawartha, and then we match them with a community organization for a second term. Will they do a volunteer placement to, again, give back to the community, build those relationships, network, and apply some of the things that they've learned from the skills workshop throughout first semester.
That's also a really good way to become familiar with the Peterborough community and your peers around, and again, getting to know people as well. I know that's a big anxiety for students coming to Trent, so that's a really interesting resource. I'm going to start talking about that a bit more when I talk to students and families. A couple more questions. As a parent right now who looked at all of these resources, was listening throughout your presentation, is there anything that they can do now to start supporting their students and preparing themselves and their students? I know some students might be starting in January, but most students may be starting in September of next year. But is there anything that they can start doing now?
I think having open conversations with students about what they think their needs are going to be, thinking about how you're going to help a student identify what the challenges and struggles are. In talking to students, a lot of the time we find that students will say, things are hard, things are challenging, but we need help identifying specifically what some of these challenges are so we can best help you. So parents who are able to have conversations with their student to identify particularly, what am I struggling with? Do I need that skills development? Do I need to talk to a support person? Do I need to talk to an advisor to help me navigate my courses? What is the struggle? And how can we connect you to the most appropriate resources so we don't have a student who's kind of just pushed around from department to department hoping for an answer to a vague need. And so if we're able to have those conversations, that's helpful. If we're able to identify things early, also helpful. So being able to build that communication in and have those open lines of discussion, I think is really important. That can start now.
And don't get me wrong, I love my parents, I really do. But as a student, if a student accesses any of these resources that you have talked about, for example, if they go to health services or maybe student accessibility services, will that department reach out to their parents to let them know that the student has used that resource?
No. So that's a great question. And thanks for asking, because I think it does need a little bit more clarification that as when a student accesses our supports and resources on campus, that relationship is between the support and the student. So if they're talking to a doctor, they're talking to a counselor, they're talking to an advisor, those service providers are not unfortunately going to reach out and provide updates to parents or supporters. We might be able to have discussions about how things are going. Again, that relates back to whether or not we have the student's consent.
Perfect. And my very last question for you, Lawrence, I am cognizant of time, but if you had one piece of advice for parents and supporters that is also starting a journey, I think we often think about the students starting their academic journey, but we often don't think about that the parent and the supporters are also starting this journey with the student. So one piece of advice for them.
That is a great thing to acknowledge, Jill, and recognizing that there's so much change for the student, but there's also so much change for parents and supporters. And I think being able to seek resources that are helpful for you to manage things is really, really important. It's so rewarding to meet parents on move-in day and then see them again at graduation and to talk about their experiences. And I've had opportunities to chat with these parents to say, I remember when I dropped my son or daughter off, I was a nervous wreck, but coming to the end, it's been so rewarding. And so making sure that you have the supports to navigate through and being able to be vulnerable with your students, I think will be helpful to help manage some of the expectations that both parties have through this journey.
Mhm. Yeah, that is great advice. And I always tell parents too that this is a big change for you and the student, but you will be navigating it through together. And again, each student's path is so different. So there is no one cookie cutter way of supporting one student. And so trying to access those resources that go with the student's needs and what accommodates them best is something that we try really hard to do here at Trent. And that's why, like Lauren said, we do it on that personal level. We get to know our students, which is really great. But that's a great piece of advice, Lawrence. Thank you. And for the folks tuning in tonight, you're already 10 steps ahead. You've joined this live stream tonight, so you are more knowledgeable of the different resources that the student does have here at Trent. I see we have one question in the chat, and they are asking for the recording of this session. It is being recorded, and at the end of the session, I'll get my colleague to put the link in the chat. You can access it. We record it, and then we upload it on YouTube so that you can take a look at those resources and those slides as well. But I am cognizant of time again, and I just want to say thank you. Thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you for asking your questions. And thank you, Lawrence, for sharing all of those resources with us today. And so I'll get John to put in the chat if you do have any more questions for student affairs. For Lawrence, for one more time, what is the contact information that's best for parents and students to reach out to you?
Yeah, so you can connect with us at studentaffairs@trentu.ca.
Perfect. And if you do have general questions about Trent University, you can email us at discovertrent@trentu.ca or discovertrentdurham@trentu.ca. And the link in the chat for the live streams have been posted. And then we do have campus tours if you did want to come and visit our campus. We are open 6 days a week. The schedule might be a little bit different with the holiday break, but you can check that out. And then if you do have any more questions, feel free to reach out to us. Join more live streams, but on behalf of myself, on behalf of Lawrence and Trent University, thank you for joining us this evening, and we hope to see you in the fall. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.